Right then, let's discuss the opposition then. There's not really much to say other than I think I had a little deep dive into where Forest have been in the last couple of decades because I didn't fully know. They've been up and down the divisions quite a bit more than I thought. They went into the Premier League they were started in 1992-93, got relegated, came back in, actually quite well in their first season back in, got relegated in the mid-90s, came back for a bit, got relegated again, went to the Championship, went to League One in 2005, then got out of that in 2008. Been in the Championship then for a good 14 years, which was almost as long as our stretch. And then they have now been a Premier League club for the last 4 seasons. But they don't have the same manager in charge every season, do they? They seem to change that quite a lot, and there's probably a good reason for that, isn't there?
Yeah, they're not very well run. They don't have a very good process going on, I would say, owing to the fact that Mr. Marinakis, as he's known, yeah, like they've had success last year, but given the way it's gone since, kind of feels more like that was a coming together of like a lot of coincidences more than like a cohesive idea, which is a great shame.
Yeah, if people didn't know, they finished 16th in their first season, 17th in their second season, 7th last season, and qualified for technically the Conference League, and then they got bumped into the Europa League by Crystal Palace, being owned by 2 clubs in the same competition, which was, I think, Lyon, and they couldn't have them both there, so Lyon stayed in and Palace went out. And now, because they've got that extra schedule and they still can't sign enough players, apparently, to deal with that schedule, they're down in 17th below us, although on the same points. I'm surprised to see that Deitch has come in and won 10 games in 23, but I'm been told by you that most of that has come in European competition, not that many in the league. So even though they had that bad start under Ange Postecoglou, obviously, it's only improved slightly recently. But now is your time to shine, Will, because I wanted to ask you about recruitment, because obviously there's been a lot about Leeds' window here and how poor or good or whatever else it was for a lot of fans. Who's to blame, blah, 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 blah. I know you wanted to compare it a little bit to Forest and sort of say, you know what, Leeds might have been more sensible not to do business here.
Yeah, it's kind of maybe in the last half a week as we came towards the end of the window, I saw quite a few tweets kind of saying like, look, Forest are doing this, doing that. We need to be more like Forest. And not just because like I live in Nottingham and therefore don't like Forest. I just so disagree. And disagree so much that I went through the effort of looking at every signing they've made since promotion. They've signed 70 players in 4 years. 70. 70.
70.
7-0.
That's insane, Jeremy.
70.
And I don't know, like I'm probably going to do something for the Patreon writing about this, because the more I've looked, the more I've thought about it, and there's just too much to cover. But a kind of
it will be a Leeds piece, right?
It's about
with Forest comparison.
Leeds' recruitment and using another recently-ish promoted team as a comparison, and I might bring some others into that. But just as a summary, like, we need to be like Forest. We don't. They've spent 675 million in 4 seasons, and they're still in relegation battles. If we spend that much money and don't progress from where we are now, that's really disappointing. And just another bit to kind of defend Okafor, of all players. He's come in for a lot of stick from Leeds fans recently for like not scoring enough. He scored 2 goals this season. And Doyle, Hutchinson and Bakwa, that they spent 120 million on combined, have got 2 between them.
Is that in the league or all comps?
In the league. League. And I just want to finish with the idea that Forest are good at transfers. I asked my mates that are Forest fans to rate their windows recently. They gave the summer window a 3 and the January window a 2. So the grass isn't always greener,
more than we
right?
did.
Yeah, and the point that one of them made is like, he could understand fans being jealous of the amount that Marinakis is willing to invest, but that isn't the same as doing it well. Yeah, as I said, I'll probably write something and go into it more. But
I think scattergunny that they've got lucky with some of them, probably, is what you're kind of getting at.
Yeah, basically. 20 out of the 70 players they've signed have now left the club having played less than Ramazani did, by the way.
Right.
totaling 79 million plus 5 loans. So that's a huge waste of money.
One thing I wonder is there's obviously a lot gone on about Marinakis' relationship with whoever that
Olympiacos, is it?
that director
Edu?
of football. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Edu.
wonder how many of these 70 transfers were agent led and they didn't even scout them or do any sort of process into identifying if they're the right guy for them, and they just did it because it brings money in and there's something potentially dodgy going on there.
Yeah, quite a few ended up at
yeah.
Olympiacos, having never played for Forest. But Edu only came in this summer, so like, not that there wasn't an existing relationship before, but he's only had control of Forest since this summer, where they spent 241 million, and like, by all accounts, have got worse. So, I don't want to be like that. I don't want Leeds to operate in that way.
I can't remember all
that's
of their
enough for now.
summer signings, by the way, Will, but how many have actually been successful from this season? Like, or deemed successful? Because obviously, like, I think Omari Hutchins is a nice player, but they spent 38 million on him. I would have spent maybe half that or just over half that.
Of players, there's basically no one. Like, Igor Jesus for 20 million euros has been a serviceable backup.
Yeah.
And that's probably as good as you're getting.
So what you're saying is, in terms of a comparison, especially if you look at our, over the same period, we've had the 49ers now for 3.5 years. Or 2.5 years, sorry. Our hit rate's been pretty good. Like, even the ones that we think are not quite successful, there are other circumstances as to why. Like Ramazani, for example, did have a good amount of goals and assists in the games that he played, the minutes that he played, but didn't play that many minutes. So it's kind of a bit of an in-between one where it's like there are some success with that and some not so successful bits with that. And even then, others, like, we've had other ones that haven't worked out so well. Perry looks like he might be one of those this summer, but a lot of the ones we signed in the summer are key components of the team. They're in the spine of the team. Beal, Stack, and Calvert-Lewin being three obvious ones. Goodmanson obviously at left wing back. They're like four of the best signings we've made. And so they blow all of what Forest have done, apart from maybe your Elliot Andersons and your Murillos, out of the water, really.
Yeah, I think, and the other disclaimer to give the other teams some credit, as you mentioned in the Arsenal bit, some of the players they've signed, I'm pretty confident would be good under a different manager in a different setup. And Doy back were they're pretty well thought of by a lot of people that are clever with football. McAtee, the same. I think he'd be good if he got a better run in the team or played in a different setup. Yeah, they're basically. I'm beating a dead horse now, but they're not something to be admired personally. It's just obscene.
Yeah, I agree. Last point then on that is like that area of the pitch in particular is there's just so many players, and maybe it's just counterproductive having that much competition. Like, there's competition and then there's competition. McAtee can play as a 10 or a winger, but they've players in both those positions ahead of him. It's like really difficult for him to get a run of games when Morgan Gibbs White is the captain, that kind of thing. It's really difficult for those sort of players, and it maybe just didn't make sense for him to go there. He might have been better off coming to a team like Leeds, for example. It might have suited him better, but here we are. Anyway, let's talk about form then. We'll come on to talk about why maybe some of those players are not having the best out of them soon when we talk about Dyche and tactics. But form-wise, Martin, what are Forest looking like over the kind of last 10 games? Also, what's the XG looking like over the last 10 games as well?
So in the past 10 games, in the form table, they're 13th. So they've got...
We're 13th, they're 14th.
Sorry, 14th, even misreading things. So yeah, 14th, and they've got 11 points. The XG is 12.87, which is a good 6 less than what we've got. And I think that is close to the joint lowest across this period. There's... I think only Sunderland have less XG than them in the past 10 games. Sunderland have 12.8 and Forest have 12.87.
To be fair, mate, you've got 17 teams there, and I'm going to wager that Burnley might have worse because they are absolutely chronic.
Yeah, I forgot that I didn't include the bottom things. I couldn't fit them all on the page I was looking at. But yeah, they are very low. They are very low down there, at least in what we're seeing here. And the XG against is a little bit better. They're not doing too badly in that. They've actually got less XG against than we have, 17.92 to our 19.08. So yeah, they've done reasonably well over the last 10 games. They've had some tough games as well in this, but also some more favourable ones too. They've, in the last 10 games, have beat Spurs, they've beat West Ham, they've beat Brentford, and then they've drew against Palace and Arsenal. Lost against Villa, Everton, City, Fulham, and Everton again. Wow. That's rough to lose twice against Everton in the space of 5 games. That's rough. But yeah. So they're doing reasonably well, similar to us, really, in terms of overall points in the last 10 games.
But I guess, and this is what we're going to come on to talk to about now, Will, in terms of tactics, the expected goal difference figure there that I'm looking at for Leeds is minus 0.2, which is fine, especially because Arsenal have pummeled that down a little bit. Theirs is minus 5.05, and the only teams I can see on this table that are worse than that are West Ham minus 5.41, and Everton minus 10.05, which is, I don't know how that's happened.
Jordan Pickford, that's how it happens.
What
Jordan
a man
Pickford.
he is. But anyway, that means that something must be going wrong a little bit tactically, or they're not quite at the level tactically, even though they are picking up some decent points. So how do they operate in possession, and why are fans a little bit frustrated about Deitch with these attacking players?
I saw, if I can find the Twitter account, I will absolutely, we can repost it from the All Stats on my account. I saw someone do a really good analysis of the Braga game and what went wrong there. And Forest quite often do this weird thing where the defense and attack become completely detached. And in this clip against Braga, it happened several times, was the back four are passing between each other, but the wingers have gone high and wide. The striker is wide. Gibbs White is near the striker, and there's just no one in the middle. And they kind of want it to go long. The defenders aren't committing to it. Kind of, in a way, similar to problems we've had of like, if you're going to go long, you've got to just do it. Kind of caught halfway between ideas. And yeah, starved the attack of meaningful touches or time in the opposition half through that, which I couldn't not make this point that Deitch was happy to parade whilst unemployed about how if he had good players, he'd play good football. It's not the case, is it? Because, I beat up their transfer policy a little bit, but they have kind of, through sheer volume, accumulated a lot of good footballers. And he's doing so poorly with them. Yeah,
this must be the most technical, like high level of attack that he's ever had as a manager in his entire career. Everton, Watford, it's just not going to have been anywhere near this, and obviously Burnley the same. So that is obviously disappointing for Forest fans when they know that there's probably more for players like Bakwa, even though they're giving up on him, to give. I think there is probably more there to be unlocked, and another manager probably could. Anything else about in possession stuff, Martin, or can I ask you about out of possession? You wanted to talk about that?
So there's not a whole lot else I would really add to what Will was saying, other than that I know that they tend to over-rely on crosses, and they do tend to spam crosses into the box when they're running out of ideas. So if you can shut down their crosses into the box, you should do pretty good against stopping them from scoring. Obviously, the Dyche side is always going to rely on counter-attacking to generate them chances. So that's one thing we have to be wary of, and they do have pacey attackers aplenty in their lineup, so we've got to make sure we handle the transitions. But in terms of the out of possession stuff, it's what you'd expect from a Sean Dyche side. They're aggressive, they don't allow you space in their half, they don't do too much in terms of high pressing. So yeah, it's hard to tell with the recovery stats as to what it looks like under Dyche, because I can't get the data for the last 10 games. All I can tell you is what it's been for the season as a whole, and they've got Ange Postecoglou's stats to take into account in there, and he's very aggressive. So they're currently 11th for high recoveries and 12th for PPDA, but that could have been a lot higher under Postecoglou. Definitely will have been a lot higher under Postecoglou. So I'm guessing these could be a lot lower than that. So they can be aggressive in phases out of possession, and Dyche is very well thought of as an out of possession coach. That's one of the reasons why John McKenzie raved about him, and that because he's so good at that side of the game. But yeah, in terms of the in possession stuff, him saying that if he had a better squad and would play differently, if he had better players, like Will says, it doesn't really hold water. It doesn't seem like he's able to coach good attacking stuff alongside the good out of possession stuff that he's clearly capable of.
Yeah, well, I don't know what your mates think about Dyche out of possession. Are they more warm to that side of things, or is it still problems there for you as well?
For the most part, they don't really talk about out of possession in possession. It's just Dyche is rubbish.
Proper lads down the football level.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, quite rightly, general frustration about the performances. And as you mentioned, the crosses, particularly against, I think it was Everton away that a few of my mates went to. They attempted 52 crosses. Bearing in mind, Everton had Tarkowski and O'Brien playing centre-back, which is it's a terrible idea anyway to just spam crosses, but especially against them. And there was one of the Athletic podcasts I was listening to. They were saying Forest had the highest number of crosses attempted this season and the lowest percentage completed. So they're not even good at their number one tactic. So it's more general frustration about the attacking stuff for the most part, because to some extent Milinkovic and Murillo are like some of their better players, so they can kind of cheat a little bit defensively because they will kind of sort them out so much.
So funny that like all the wingers they've got, I think of Hudson-Odoi, back when he was at Strasbourg, they like to cut in. They like to do things when they're on the inside channels, like either combining with players or trying to find a way to get a shot. There's not many that are really good crosses. McAtee's probably one of the better ones, actually. He's quite a creative player.
Even Gibbs White, just stick him wide. He's got good ball strike.
It's not a bad shout at all. And so they probably needed to sign a crosser. Instead, they've just got loads of like good dribblers, good inside forwards, or good athletes. Like Ndoye's just an insane athlete. It's just a really weird blend when they don't need them. And they probably should have addressed that in January, but I guess we can't keep saying Forest need to make signings because eventually it has to stop. But yeah, the data suggests, we're going to come on to that in a bit, but the data suggests some of what we're saying here. I'd never usually do this, but we're scrambling a bit when FBref doesn't exist anymore. So I was looking at strengths and weaknesses on who scored, and things like the crosses were in the strengths and protecting the lead as well. So they're clearly a decent team when they've got the lead because Dyche can set them up kind of how he wants. But getting the lead maybe sometimes an issue, or fighting back into games maybe an issue because, they've not been great in other departments. Individual errors, defending counter-attack, defending set pieces, aerial duels are all described as weak in those kinds of areas as well. Any changes to the usual against us, Will, do you think? Or is it going to be kind of more of the same? They're coming to Ellen Road. Do you think they're going to try to like sit in a little bit? Or do you think they'll try and possess the ball a little bit in the defensive areas and have a bit of a disjointed attack in defence, as you mentioned? How's it going to look, do you think, at Ellen Road?
I could see Dyche playing for a point, to be honest. In a kind of don't lose, maybe nick something approach, rather than, they're not going to, maybe if it's 1-0 to us for the last 10 minutes, they'll go mad. But it'll be, I can't picture anything else. And we've done it a few times as well, away from home this season, of like, just take the point. Because they're in the same position as us, that they've got a bit of a gap to West Ham. They just need to accumulate points. And away at Elland Road, like, I kind of forget sometimes that other teams kind of have this, but Elland Road's a hard place to go. Mm-hmm. So I think they'd take a point, and I think Dyche, it's his nature to set up to not concede, and even more so here, it's in their interest.
Yeah, we've only lost 6 league games under Farke in the league at Ellen Road. I know that goes back to the Championship, but still, that's pretty impressive. Martin, are you expecting anything different from Dyche here, or are you expecting some pretty harambol stuff?
Yeah, I would expect typical Dyche. Also, just want to put in perspective about the cross numbers that Will was mentioning there, because while he was talking, I was just looking up to see what our highest one was, and our highest one was around 45 in one match.
Was that Burnley?
I'm not actually sure which one it was, but it was on the 18th of October. This what I'm looking at here.
That'd be about right for Burnley.
So mid-40s, but then most of the rest of the season we've hovered around between 20 and 30, and we're pretty much on average for the league, which is surprising considering we've got Calvert-Lewin, so we should maybe be playing to that strength a little bit more. But yeah, Forest is just funny where you see that more than 50 in one particular game that has shot up their averages for the season, which is really funny. But anyway, what else was I saying? Yeah, I don't expect to see anything major different here from Dyche. Maybe a little bit more harambali than he would be at their ground. But yeah, largely I think it'd be the same.
I think the reason our numbers aren't as good now, Martin, is probably because we're not playing with two out wide as much, so you don't have the opportunities to have overlaps and underlaps and that kind of thing from your Bogles, from your Goodmansons, and then obviously the wingers that will be ahead of them. It's not always an option for them, so that's probably explaining that a little bit. Lineup then for Forest for this game. What are we expecting it to look like? Martin, you've written this out, so I'll let you read it out.
So yeah, what I could guess the best. I'm not sure who's going to play left back because Nico Williams usually plays there, and he's been sent off in the last game, which is very nice. So I'm gone with Sells in goal, Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo, and then I think Luca Netz may get his debut because he's just been brought in by them. I'm not sure who else they could play there. Maybe Will could fill that in after I've finished. And midfield, Sangare and Anderson. Besides, behind the striker, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White and Dominguez, and then Igor Jesus up front.
Yeah, the only other thing that's a question mark, I think, is Sells came off injured, didn't he? But I don't know how serious that was. They may have to play someone like a Stefan Ortega. They actually had Angus Gunn come on at half-time against Palace, which was pretty funny. And I'm not even that down on Gunn, but, you know, it was still pretty funny to see him playing in the Premier League after being third or fourth choice going into the season for Forest. So I think it probably will be Ortega if Sells is out. I don't know who would play left back. Will, do you?
Morato has kind of straddled between left back and left centre back. He's not been great from kind of the impression I've got from mates, but I'd imagine it'd be him. And the only other thing to mention, Hudson-Odoi had like a brace on his arm after the Palace game. So kind of difficult because I'd imagine the press conferences will be tomorrow. But that's just sort of a question.
You can play with a broken hand arm. Yeah. Obviously, maybe
so like
not
he might play through it. It might not even be that bad, but it was just something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, that's fair. Do they have any other right backs, Will? Because I know that Neco Williams...
Savona, that they all hate.
Okay, maybe not him then. Because I know Ina's definitely played a lot at left back in his career. I know
he can play both sides well, and so can Williams.
I remember one game, Ellen Road, between Leeds and Hull. He was on loan there from Chelsea, and he was really good that day. I remember thinking, like, wow, Ina's been brilliant here. I've never watched him that closely, and I thought he'd be great. And it's not that surprising he's managed to make his way to the Premier League via Serie A. Yeah, who are the biggest threats then in that team that we've written out there, Will? Obviously, that means Dominguez will be playing as a wide left player. You know, he's a centre mid normally, and they do have a lot of other wingers. But is that kind of the main area, like behind the striker, that there's some damage there? I'm looking at Gibbs White's name essentially because he's absolutely brilliant in my opinion, even if he's not had the best of seasons.
Yeah, I mean the kind of Dom Winguez gimmick that has been going on for a while is quite funny. I've completely stolen that name. That's what all the Forest fans call it. Just for like a Dyche industrial type winger.
Yes.
So you're basically looking at Gibbs White, whoever plays right wing, to do something. And also Igor Jesus, to be fair, he's not brilliant, but his goal against Brentford was really well taken. So maybe he'll be kind of buoyed by that and has a moment in him.
I think he's only got 3 league goals. Like most of them.
Yeah, he's not scored much. He's kind of a puts a shift in type.
I think he's the top scorer in Europe, though. If I'm right, might be wrong. I think he is. It's really interesting that they've got so many wide right options, and yet they've shoehorned Hudson-Odoi there recently when he's a left winger that's better at shooting when he comes inside. And they've got McAtee who could play there. They've got Ndoye, they've got Hutchinson, they've got Bakwa. Just play one of them. I don't really get it, but there we are. And also just on Nets, because I think a lot of people won't know about him, but they'll probably know a bit about the other players. If he does play at left back and Dominguez is a central player playing on the wing, does he actually go on the outside, by the way, Will, or does he kind of just drift into some areas?
Quite often they've had Williams kind of occupying the wide left.
Yeah. So I was going to say, if that's the case, then Nets does that.
Yeah, it just becomes a bit ugly because Williams is very, very right foot dominant. So always has to cut back in to cross. But that has kind of Dominguez a little bit narrower, maybe, with Williams going wide.
Well, then I guess having their first left-footed left-back that's not a centre-back playing at left-back and who it does overlap might actually help them a little bit. And Nets is a kind of, I would say he's more of an attacking fullback than he is a defensive one or an all-rounder. He certainly played a lot as a left-back or left wing-back in his career and will get forward. So he's a player that's a pretty decent crosser of the ball, pretty decent fullback. I don't think he's anything special, and a lot of Leeds fans were pining for him on deadline day, which I wasn't fully about, to be honest. Not for me. I don't even think he'll play that much for Forest when Williams is back. So that is what it is. Anyone else you really like there, Martin? I've got another eye on the midfield duo. I think Sangare, however you say it, is a very decent player and scored a nice goal against us earlier in the season. Just a powerhouse of midfielder that's kind of found his own now. And the partner next to him is just a spectacular footballer in Elliot Anderson, who's probably going to sign with Man United for about 100 million this summer. So, you know, Marinakis has wasted a load of money and then suddenly gets 100 million to sort himself out. Bit annoying. Anyone else you really like, Martin?
I think you've covered nearly everyone. But yeah, the centre backs are decent. I'm sure Dyche loves those two. Milenkovic and Murillo, both very dominant defenders. Calvert-Lewin will definitely have his hands full with those two. I think he did. I'm not sure if it was him who played in the last one. I think it might have been Mecha who started the last one.
And Milinkovic just
really nice goal.
Him.
Yeah,
he scored a really nice goal.
He did, but he didn't have a sniff physically.
No, I think obviously Calvert-Lewin will give them more to think about than what Mecha did on that day. But yeah, you've covered all the rest of the players. The midfield duo's good. Sangare and Anderson. Those were the two that I was going to mention before you finished off your bit. We were talking about them. It's cool. But yeah, they do have a lot of quality in the squad, so it's pretty crazy that they are as far down as what they are. It's just Marinakis being a lunatic, really, isn't it?
Yep, it is indeed. Just two other things quickly. As an England fan, delighted about Anderson. He's currently not only on the plane for me, he starts next to Rice in my current England team. He's absolutely fantastic. And he suits the role next to Rice perfectly because it gives Rice a bit more freedom. And the other one I wanted to say is that it's really interesting. Milenkovic was signed from Fiorentina, right, Will?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the player that BL was compared to most by scout types, analyst types, tactico types in the summer was Milenkovic, from his time at Udinese. And funnily enough, in January, there were a few murmurings that Fiorentina might be keen on BL, which would be really funny because obviously he gets compared to him and then could have replaced him. But we ain't selling that magnificent Eastern European man anytime soon. He's great, and I hope that he is back for this one. But anyway, stats then, just to finish us off, Martin. Anything that can back up what we've been talking about would be lovely. Anything extra?
Well, like I said before, it's hard to really judge too heavily on these stats with there being 3 managers worth of stuff in it, but I've noticed some stuff down anyway. For open play XG, the 15th, 1.17 per game. Set piece XG, they're 19th, which was probably worse than what I was expecting, to be honest. XG difference, 16th, minus 0.52 per game. Open play XG against, the 13th, so 1.44, which is, again, a little bit better than what I was expecting there. Set piece XG against, 11th, so again, a bit more solid from the defending set pieces rather than attacking them. High recoveries, they're 11th, like I mentioned before, but that could just be a hangover from Postecoglou, and similar for PPDA at 12th. But interestingly, the off-ball pressure as well is quite high. The 8th, just what you know, off-ball pressure is. This is something which is particular to this Ben Griffiths Streamlit app that I've been doing. I think is his own mixture of data, and it says off-ball pressure includes forcing opponents out of the final third, keeping their possession deep, and intercepting passes. So that, to me, seems pretty Dyche coded, to be honest. So off-ball pressure 8th. 6.51, whatever that means, but either way, the 8th in the league for that, so pretty aggressive. That does tie up with what you'd expect from a Dyche side. So I'd imagine he has some involvement in that side of things, and I wouldn't mind seeing what that's like just for the last, since Dyche has come in, but the app did not let me do that. But I will be suggesting it because it would be a nice thing to add on to there. It would help me a lot.
Does he follow all stats, Ben Griffith?
I don't know if he does. He could do, but yeah, I might have to reach out to him, suggest it.
Or get John to. John will know. Right, I think we can end the Forest bits here, unless you've got any closing thoughts, Will, on that, or can we move on to Leeds? Right then, what are we expecting our lineup to look like then? Because we do have some returning players, maybe, but it's not confirmed yet. It sounds like Beal will be back sometime this week, so I don't know whether we should include him in the starting lineup straight away here. Do we think it'll be a back five still, Will? Or are you thinking a back four, or where's your mind at?
I'm kind of would be keen to see 4-3-3 again, I think, at some point. But it seems that Fark, having been so resistant to changing to this way of playing now, is kind of sticking with the 3-4-3, even though we've kind of amongst ourselves noted that Stack is kind of actually not being used to his strengths anymore to kind of stick with this formation, which I really don't fancy. I guess I'm not so wedded to the formation, it's the approach of like remaining direct and physical. So player changes wise, and I think there is actually chances of change for once because Fark tends to make a few if we have a really bad game. So I would hope, with a bit more confidence than normal, that we might see Ampadu Stack plus one that isn't Gruev in midfield.
Oh, that's why you were going with that, right? Yeah. Couldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'd quite like to have a balance. If you're going to do 3-4-3, have two wingers either side of Calvert-Lewin rather than Stack kind of doing it, but not really. I know that's kind of a lot of possibilities without a clear answer.
No, I like that. This is the discussion time.
Some personnel changes, and making sure Stack is actually a centre mid because he's, I think, our best player. So you should play him in the role that fits him best.
I agree completely with that. You described them as wingers either side of Calvert-Lewin. I'd maybe more describe them, and it's semantics, doesn't really matter, as more like wide tens. Kind of the roles they're picking up. But again, like what I was saying earlier about the wing backs not always having support, if you have two of those kind of player, it's probably a bit better, where they're more naturally like able to roam out wide if they need to. Stack doesn't really want to do that. I know he did against Everton in that one moment and then we scored, but like he doesn't really want to be there. He wants to be more central. So yeah, Martin, what are you expecting the lineup to look like? Do you think that it will be a change after the halftime changes against Arsenal? Gruev was hooked. We went to a 4. Do you think it'll be something that sticks in this game?
I think it'll still be the same shape, but there'll be some tweaks to it. Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if it was a full-on 3-4-3 rather than Stack just kind of acting like a 10, even though he's not really a 10. So yeah, I'm expecting goalkeeper-wise, I'm not sure what to expect there. I want to say that Perry will come back in, but I've got a feeling that it might just stick with Darlow. I'm not sure what reason he would have to do that, but yeah.
I do. It would mean that Farker would have to admit he's made an error if he flip-flops that quickly, not like 15 games worth of stuff, which is kind of what we got with Perry's last stretch of games. It would be like 3 games and it's like, oh, I'm dropping Darlow again for Perry. I don't know if he'd do that.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it will be Darlow. Then the back line, probably, maybe Bornau comes in for this one over Justin. Although I'm not sure if that is the best call. I'd maybe prefer to see Justin for this one because we'll have less to deal with in terms of aerial threats in this one, I feel, than we did against Arsenal. And we should be able to cope with what we had with the other players out there, but I think we're going to see Bornau, Rodon and Strauch, then Goodmanson and Bogle obviously as wing backs. I'm going to say it's just going to be a midfield 2 and it's going to be Stack and it's going to be Ampadu, then I'm going to say the front three will be Okafor, Calvert-Lewin and Aronson. But personally, I wouldn't say no to a debut from Facundo Buonanotte. That would really be nice. I think that gives us a really nice balance, because the concern you've got when you drop one of the central midfielders for a more attacking option is that we're less solid and we don't have as much bite out of possession. However, when you've got Brendan Aronson and Facundo Buonanotte, with how intense they are, I don't actually feel you lose anything by dropping that midfielder there, because of how intense both those players are. Both of them can operate as a central midfielder in a free, in my opinion, because they have that intensity out of possession to be able to cope with that, and they can run all day. You wouldn't have that problem with either of them. So that would be what I would like to see, but I think he'll probably go with Okafor to start this one, because he always takes a bit longer to warm up to new players than some managers maybe would do. Yeah, that's what I would say.
I think you've probably nailed it. I think I've got the exact 11 as you. It's not like what Will was saying, not what I would necessarily like, but it's what I think probably is going to be the case. And you were saying Buonanotte over Okafor in your kind of dream scenario, because Okafor is lazy and doesn't work hard. No, I'm joking. I wanted to just defend Okafor very quick. I don't think that's the case. I actually think Okafor's issue might be a fitness and stamina one. He's not quite built up over the last few years, a lot of games and a lot of minutes. And he's kind of had the same with us, where he was getting quite a good run at one point, probably was improving in terms of his stamina and his fitness, and then was dropped again, and now he's suddenly getting like 20 minutes here or there. And I know you'll say we're halfway through a season and he's a professional footballer, but like it's not always that simple. Like players that are out of the team are not going to have the same level of like match fitness, sharpness, stamina as some of the players starting, and his engine just isn't as good. I don't think it's necessarily just like a lazy thing. I'm not saying he's as good off the ball or as intense off the ball as some other players, but like I think it's partly stamina. And Buonanotte has that more, even though he's had a season where he's also been a bit stop-start. He certainly has like always been one of those really like energetic and intense players. It's just part of his skill set. So that's a bit different, I think. But yeah, I think you're right. I think I agree with that. In terms of that then, Will, Martin's team and my team, not your team, sorry, but it's probably going to be the case. Which players will cause Forest the most problems in your opinion from our analysis of them earlier?
I think if Okafor does play, he's kind of best equipped. Aina is also a very physical, up and down player, so Okafor would have a better chance of kind of competing with him on a physical basis. Calvert-Lewin, as we kind of mentioned, is a big improvement compared to Mecha for the style of centre backs that Forest have and the way they play. He'd still be better than Mecha was. He won't mince either of them in the way that there are some centre backs where you're like, yeah, Calvert-Lewin's going to win everything today. This won't be one of those games, I don't think. Stack again, just Anderson is for me Forest's best player, so you have to instantly look at midfielders to shut that down. And between Stack and Ampadu, they're both very good out of possession. Can mix it physically. I'd hope if they play well that we get something from this.
Yeah, I agree. That's an area to get a potential foothold, even though Songare and Anderson is a nice blend of physical and technical. It's still an area we probably can get on top. And maybe that's why you want Stack a bit deeper, and maybe Farke will recognise that to do a bit of a job on those players. Anywhere else in the team, Martin, that you've got in mind that we can cause them some problems?
Gabby Goodmanson. I'm going to say Gabby Goodmanson can cause problems for them. Just the combination of it, if it is Okafor who starts on that left side like I'm expecting, that left side does cause a lot of problems for sides, and especially if Aina gets forward a fair bit. I think Goodmanson can match most players in this league for pace and power, so I'd be up for him being a big challenge for Aina to deal with. Like Will said, he is a physical boy himself, but I do think that Goodmanson could get a better of him there. And I would echo what you both said about the physicality in midfield. It's going to be a big part of the pitch there, and if Ampadu and Stack can have good games in this one, it would really help our chances, because they rely a lot on what that physicality in midfield does for them. All Daesh sides have been known for that, and it's a big part of what makes them work so well, both in and out of possession. So, yeah, we'd have to have a top game from those two.
Yep, agreed. I think Bogle a little bit as well. Net's debut under the lights, Ellen Road, I quite like that. Tough cauldron to be in, and Bogle just doing his driving runs down the side that he can do as well. Not quite as effective as carrying the ball as Goodmanson, but still will do it. Is there anywhere we might struggle a little bit in this one? I think there's a few players for them that can really hurt us if the game opens up transitionally. Like I say this about a lot of Premier League teams, but it's true. A lot of their wingers have a lot of pace and not as much dumb wingers, but other players on the other side and Gibbs White in those kind of pockets, they can be really, really dangerous players. So those are the ones I'm scared about. And then if we'd let Anderson get a hold of the game, I know under Deitch he doesn't get through as much in terms of they're not using him to his absolute best in terms of possession stuff, but his kind of range of passing is still pretty good. And his feel for the game and his tempo for the game is really pretty good. So, getting him on the ball and him controlling stuff, it could be a worry if he starts to do that and we're not getting a handle on him out of possession. Kind of the things I'm looking at. To be honest, I know they've got a good side, but it does feel like quite a lot of areas where we can, do them a little bit. Our centre back should handle. I know Jesus has done a pretty good job as a focal point, but I think all of them could handle him pretty well in the air. So it's that kind of thing. Chris Wood would have been a bit scarier in the air because he is really, really good in the air, and he's not fit. He's out for another couple of months, isn't he? So I don't know. I'm struggling a bit with this one, Will. But who else do you think is going to have a bit of a problem in our game?
You kind of mentioned Gibbs White. I just think quite often out of possession, it annoys me. We kind of leave holes between the defensive line, and the midfield line. That I envisage Gibbs White as the kind of player that would just like to drift into those, and he's pretty two-footed, can make things happen from there. So maybe there's a little bit of really keeping that in mind out of possession, because we've got away with it at times. But you saw against Everton, Dewsbury Hall, once he came on, was getting on the ball so much, just kind of in little pockets. I'd worry about Gibbs White doing similar, because as you say about Anderson, in possession not really being platformed that well by Deitch. I think Gibbs White is a bit the same. He's a very final third player, and they just don't spend time in the final third. But he'll still have a moment or two, I would imagine.
If I remember rightly, he had a really good game in the reverse. He got the penalty, but he just looked really good in that game. I think he's fantastic, to be fair. England are blessed in that area of the pitch. Anyone else you're worried about from Leeds' perspective, Martin?
Okay. Should we just carry on, do you reckon?
He might be speaking right now, which would be quite funny, but yeah, we'll carry on. Yeah,
he's gone. He's gone. Okay.
He might come back in, but we'll carry on. I don't really know anyone else. I can't really think of anyone else. If the game opens up transitionally, there's quite a few turnovers, probably a bit of a problem in the wide areas if they like to cross the ball a lot. Bogle and Goodmanson are going to have to deal with quite a bit in that respect. It's probably the only other thing I can think of other than goalkeeper, because no matter what he chooses, Farker, I think there's going to be scrutiny on whoever that is, that player. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on that, in the sense that if they're making a mistake, it's going to be more groany than usual inside Ellen Road. Because of how it's done recently. So I worry about whoever's picked, really. Even if he sticks with Darlow and shows him a vote of confidence, I don't know. I think the fans are going to be a bit nervy about it after the last one. And if he goes with Perry, it's oof, that's a big call after just 3 or 4 games of Darlow being in goal. So yeah, that's what I would say. Do you think there'll be any changes from our tactics, Will? Or do you think because of how Deitch is, like you said, going to set up more so for a point, or at the very least to kind of come and frustrate, maybe nick something? Do you think that we're going to have a lot of the ball kind of a la the Championship games? And it's going to be not attack versus defence necessarily, but we're going to just be able to pass it around in defence and in midfield quite a lot, and have to build through that.
I would imagine so. Not to the extent of the away game, because at that point we were still trying to do possession, but it was so obvious in that game that anytime we got the ball, Forest dropped to the halfway line and we're just have it. They don't care about us having possession. So I don't know. I think if we mix it a bit of possession more than we have in with still going direct at times, that can be fine. And we do have I don't want us to be a possession dominant team at the moment, but we do have quality to a degree. So it's not like we've got no hope. It's just it might be a lot of stodge at times, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think this will be a particularly fun one for the neutral, is what I'm thinking a little bit. They do press though, and they'll pick their moments, won't they? Like Martin was going through the data earlier, like they're not completely against it and pressing us in the right areas, but that's not too much of an issue if they do either, because like you said, kind of want a bit of a mixed game, kind of want to see us go long sometimes, so it wouldn't be the end of the world stylistically for us and for them to do that. This is Martin's favourite bit, and we're going to do it without him, but that's fine. Which is, what will this game of football look like, and where will the game be won or lost? I'll answer the first bit, and you can answer. I think the first bit is quite simple. Like, I don't think it's going to be the most entertaining game in the world. I can't see it being a basketball match, even though there might be some moments where there are a little bit of transitional moments quite often. I think it's going to be more or less lots of ball in midfield and quite stodgy, as Will says. So that's where I'm at. It might be quite low scoring as well. It might be just a couple of goals in it. I don't think either team are going to be desperate to lose this one. I wouldn't go as far as to say this is must win for Leeds, but it's definitely, you do not lose this game, because if we lose and West Ham win against Burnley, it is like people panicking after the window that we just had and the way they're already feeling. This is a big one not to lose. Let's put it that way. But yeah, what do you think? What will this game of football look like, and where do you think it'll be won or lost? More importantly,
I think to go Forest winning it to start with, taking it deep at 0-0, and then I do, because of the kind of crazy squad building they've done, they can change both wingers and not drop off in quality, for example. Whereas I'm not quite sure we're the same off the bench. And like, again, the away game, Hutchinson came on and just Harrison couldn't live with him, which is so not Harrison's fault. But it's just something to be wary of, is like tiring legs, particularly because Goodmanson's been out for a while. If he is kind of playing on and Hutchinson comes on, that would make me a bit nervy. But equally, Goodmanson tends to deal with players well, much better than Harrison would, bless him.
Yeah, my issues with Goodmanson are more around switching off at the back post, not checking your shoulder when there's a player on the blind side, that kind of thing, rather than like the 1-versus-1 defending. He's done pretty well in that respect in most games. Yeah, hopefully one of the only other things I can add to what Will said about won or lost is set pieces is probably the thing we've not spoken about a ton. We spoke about Forest earlier. Might went through the data. I think it was that they're 19th. Oh, you can probably tell me because he's coming back in now. We're actually on the last question, Martin, so I can ask you where this game will be won or lost. But my point was going to be about set pieces for us, because our data's reasonable. I haven't checked it for a little while, but their data on defensive set pieces, 19th in the league. Not great. Or is that on offensive? I can't remember which way around it is. I think it's defensive. I think I'm right. So that's definitely got to be an area that we can exploit. And if we go with someone like Bornau, as we mentioned earlier in the pod, that might make some sense, because we've got an extra body there that's very tall, very, very, very good in the air. Suddenly we've got like 4 targets, 4 long throw-ins, 4 corners, for any kind of set piece, free kick around the box at all. So yeah, I think that could be pretty good for us. But in general, I don't think this game will be very high scoring. I think it'll be quite stodgy in the middle, as I said. Martin, what do you think watching this game of football will look like, and where will it be won or lost? And then we can finish.
So I think we will most likely dominate possession in this one. I don't think Dyche will be that interested in having the ball in this, and will mainly be looking to transition and get set pieces. But like you mentioned about the set pieces, our numbers are pretty good. They're not as strong as they once were, but I think the Arsenal game is coming into that, because we basically created nothing in the Arsenal game, so that's made our figures take a knock.
That was one header.
Exactly. So yeah, we're still 8th in the league for set piece XG, 0.26 per game, and Forest were 19th, so they really don't create anything. Set piece XG against, they're a bit stronger. I think they're around mid-table, maybe a little bit better than that.
I got that the wrong way around. That's fine though.
Yeah, so they're like 11th for set piece XG against, so they're not great, but they are a little bit better than we are. Not by much, like Their average is 0.29 set piece XG against per game. Ours is 0.31. So it's very, very small is the difference between us and them in defending set pieces. So yeah, we're both relatively mid-table for set piece defending. And yeah, so it is a viable way for us to get at any side. And I do think that we should have joy in this one. Yeah, definitely. And where will the game be won or lost? I think it's going to come down to if we can stop them from getting good quality balls into the box and defend our box well, I think we win this game. I do not want to see Morgan Gibbs-White win a header in this game in our box, let alone score from one like he did in the last game. I do not want to see that again. Whoever is defending in the box this one, Pascal, Roden, Bornau, if you're playing, if that happened once, shame on you. Yeah, I know he's got good movement, but come on, he's like Adam's height. He shouldn't be winning any balls in the box.
I'm not even sure.
But compared to our centre backs, you are.
Oh, I'm tiny, yeah. Actually, do you know what's funny? Murillo, he's 5'11", isn't he?
He's pretty small. He's just like quite stocky.
What's
no, well, I mean, I'm smaller than 5'11" as well. Like, it's fine.
But yeah, Murillo's just like a unit. He's a really
he's like
weird build.
Physically strong without actually being that tall.
And
but Gibbs-White's 5'7", according to this. So
I think he's a tiny bit taller.
I thought he was taller than that, to be honest.
I think he's a bit taller than that.
SofaScore says 5'7",
well,
so take it up with them.
I think they've not updated it for a while. They might be back in his like Wolves days as a child. But yeah, Murillo is pretty good in the air for his size. It must be said he's very strong. But Martin is correct, and I agree with everything he said. So we can end that here. Just a reminder, patreon.com/ASAW Patreon is where you can find extra content, and Will is going to do an article on there. He says he signed up for it now, so he's got to do it on Leeds/Forest. You're doing it. And yeah, just a reminder to like and subscribe on YouTube if you're here, and leave a comment. Say something. Say something nice. Say something not nice. Say something constructive. That's fine. I don't mind. Just give us the engagement. That's fine with me. Sunderland fans don't like us very much after that preview pod, and then we drew with them. So all that's left for me to say is thank you very much to Will.
Cheers.
And to you, Martin.
Thank you too.
Or most of Martin. We lost you for a bit there. And thank you, dear listeners. We'll be back with a review of this game and a preview of Chelsea. Ooh, it's a tough period of games coming up very soon for another busy week. Enjoy the rest of this week and the weekend in the meantime, though. Goodbye.